My name is Richard. I'll be your host for this session, which simply means I'll be giving an introduction, a wrap up at the end, and controlling the technical side of things, as well as moderating the chat function. You will just hear my voice. I represent WACSSO, who in turn have represented P&Cs and parents in public schools for 101 years. Usually our webinars are only relevant for our P&Cs, but tonight's content is relevant for all parents across all education sectors. Who have children who are thinking about a possible vet pathway to a future career. So welcome everyone. Tonight we have joined forces with Industry Training Hubs for the first of 3 webinars we will deliver this year. So you can see our panel of experts there. An introduction to our panel of experts. Linda Winter, Industry Training Hubs. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Richard.
Megan Strong, Industry Training Hubs as well.
Hi,
Tracy
everybody.
Beer, South Metropolitan TAFE. And Nikki Howe on the ground at Byford Secondary College.
Hello.
In the middle of the screen, you will see the main written presentation. On the right, you will see a gallery of our experts, and sometimes that will swap over. Bottom right is the chat function. So our schedule for tonight, well, first of all, the introduction, which I'm doing now. Then Megan and Linda will talk about an exciting new government initiative called Industry Training Hubs and how that can help you. Linda and Tracy will then have a conversation about VET, what it is, and how VET pathways work at TAFE. Megan and Nikki will then discuss the options for students in year 11 and 12 who are thinking about doing a VET course. We will then wrap up. I'm going to hand you over now to Linda, who will kick off tonight.
Thank you, Richard, for the introduction. A little bit of information first from Megan and I about the Industry Training Hubs. The Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Western Australia, were successful in tendering for the contract for 2 industry training hubs in Western Australia. The industry training hubs were announced in the 2019-20 budget as part of the federal government's skills package, delivering skills for today and tomorrow. Training hubs have been implemented in 10 regional areas across Australia, and aim to improve the opportunities for young people in regions with high youth unemployment, targeting years 11 and 12 students to assist them with building and choosing occupations in demand in their region. The hubs are a pilot project and are an Australian government initiative supported by the Department of Education, Skills and Employment, DESE. Each training hub is managed by a full-time career facilitator, providing on-the-ground presence while delivering training hub services. Career facilitators work to create better linkages between schools and local industry, repositioning vocational education and training as a first choice option.
Thank you. Over to Megan now, who's going to talk about the career facilitators role.
Thanks, Linda and Richard. So the career facilitators' roles are to facilitate the links between local employers, industry and schools to support VET pathways in the areas of local skills shortages and that complement the completion of secondary education. So we're working closely with industry, employers, other stakeholders in our regions and identifying current and emerging skills needs and employment opportunities. So the focus is on traditional trades and other occupations delivered within the VET sector. So we act as a liaison point to the wider community to enable students to access training and other pathways that link to local employment. So we can arrange or organise or coordinate industry, parent, student, employer activities, training and or professional development for industry mentors, trainers, educators, teachers and other relevant stakeholders. So that's a bit about the career facilitator's role. And then I'm just going to tell you about my region, which you can see up there on the left-hand side. So I look after the Industry Training Hub Wanneroo. So the region covers the Perth Northwest corridor, as you can see, and covers from Churchlands up to Two Rocks, and the border being just inside Gingin and the Shire of Swan. So the focus areas for the Wanneroo Hub are the Upper Perth Northwest area where access to training and services is an issue, and also transport is a major challenge for students and their families. So unfortunately, Perth Northwest features has the third highest youth unemployment rate in WA, sitting at 11% at the moment, with the largest pockets in the region being in the Wanneroo area.
So the area that the Industry Training Hub Armidale covers, which is my area, is the southeast area of Perth. It reaches from Victoria Park to the base of the hills and across to Kwinana Freeway and all the way down to Serpentine Jarrahdale. Concentrating on the areas of high youth employment, which is why Armidale has been chosen as the industry training hub, due to its significant rate of youth unemployment. Perth South East youth unemployment has dropped again this month to 12.3%, down from 12.7% last month. The southeast region now sits at the third highest youth employment region, next to Bunbury at second spot, and with the Wheat Belt now sitting at the highest youth employment region at 13.6%. So the focus for me is on the Gosnells, Thornley, Armidale area and down to Byford. Anyway, enough about the training hubs. So as you've heard about them now, you realise that we have partnered with WACSSO because we need to get information out to parents. We understand that it's important for parents to have the knowledge so that they can assist their young person as they transition from school into the next stages of their life and into a career. We want to help and assist young people in their post-school option, particularly looking at the vet sector and what it can offer. And so let's get started with the information and start a conversation by me having a chat with Tracy Beer. And Tracy is the Manager of Educational Pathways from South Metropolitan TAFE. And Tracy, just before we start, can I ask a very quick question? I assume that your role is replicated in the north of Perth as well?
That's right, Linda. Yes, North Metro TAFE have their own Education Pathways team, and we work very closely together to provide opportunities for school-aged children and beyond into their further training career.
So what we're talking about, although you're from the north, absolutely replicates we're from the south, absolutely replicates in the north.
It is.
Yeah. I say, Tracy, so my second question now, because I've had one already, is what is vocational education and training?
Thanks, Linda, and welcome and hello to everyone online. And I'd like to thank WACSSO and the Industry Training Hubs for the opportunity tonight to talk about vet pathways and what opportunities it has for young people in Western Australia. So vet, as it's traditionally called, is not about where you take your pet when it needs a checkup. It's vocational education and training, and it's study opportunities that link to industry specific. It is very practical and hands-on. And really what it's doing is it's preparing people for the real world of work. It's highly sought after and highly valued by employers. And we base our education and training on business, trade areas and industry relevant skills. So for me at TAFE, part of my role is looking after apprenticeship and traineeship support unit, but it's also managing education pathways, which is our links to secondary schools and providing opportunities for predominantly Year 11 and Year 12 students. So we're not just about apprenticeships and traineeships though, even though at South Metro TAFE, we do train 40% of the state's apprentices and trainees. And we have almost 10,000 apprentices and trainees in training. So it is a big part of what we do, but it's not the only thing that we do. We offer qualifications in around 30 industry training areas, and that ranges from hospitality, aviation, building and construction, hair and beauty, the list goes on. So there's always opportunities for a young person to find a career path. And part of that is exploring what we call vet in schools, or the official term is vet delivered to secondary students, which is a bit of a mouthful. So vet DSS is those opportunities that secondary school students have in Year 11 and 12, where they can come to TAFE 1 or 2 days a week and undertake a nationally recognised qualification. Now, that qualification can also assist them in achieving their WACSSO. So it will contribute to them achieving that graduation at the end of year 12.
Thank you. So what can a vet course offer a young person, and where can it lead them?
All right. Thank you, Richard. Look, I've popped this slide up for everyone. It's just one of very many examples of a pathway from either a vet in schools program, so when a student is still in year 11 and 12, but can take them right through into a university pathway. So many of our qualifications, if they're undertaken in 11 and 12, whatever the student has undertaken in that secondary school space as a TAFE qualification will be recognised in further training opportunities, which can start at a Certificate 2 level. This particular pathway doesn't demonstrate that, but a lot of our qualifications are Certificate 2, and they include programs that are referred to as pre-apprenticeship programs or pre-apprenticeship in schools. Now, those particular pathways give students an opportunity to do a work placement. So they'll work with a host employer for a set number of hours, and those hours contribute to the successful achievement of the qualification. But it's a really great opportunity for a young person to actually do the job and be immersed in the industry where they possibly hope to pursue a career. So failing that though, from the Certificate 2 level, you can go right through to diploma, associate diploma. And these qualifications, as I mentioned, can take a young person into a university pathway as well.
So Tracy, when we talk about a qualification, can you explain how they're made up?
So a qualification is made up of what we call units of competency, and they're all governed by industry training councils who work with industry to determine what the needs of industry are. And each of those units of competency are then broken down into elements. Now, that's probably getting a little bit too much into the detail, but there'll be things within a qualification which form the full training package, as we call it. Quite often you'll find that starts with occupational health and safety. It can include work placement components, as I mentioned, for some of our programs, but it breaks things down into bite-sized chunks so that a student can work on a particular unit of competency, and we call it competency-based assessment. So students work on a particular unit of competency until they've demonstrated to a lecturer that they are competent in that particular unit of competency. It can range from 12 units to 30 or more units, depending on what level qualification it is.
And what happens if a student's assessed by a lecturer and they're deemed that they are not competent? Is that it for them? Is that the end of that?
Definitely not. So lecturing staff and TAFE colleges, you know, we have support services in place to be able to make sure that a student can succeed to the best of their ability. There are more than one opportunities to prove competency, as we call it, but our lecturing staff are always working with students to ensure that they have the best opportunity of succeeding.
Have you got an example, Tracy, of someone that you know that's entered vet on a particular pathway with an end goal and how they managed to get there?
That's a leading question because it's one of my favourite topics, and the reason why I've used this health and nursing pathway. My daughter wasn't that fond of school, you could say, and in saying that, always knew that she wanted to pursue a nursing pathway. So as demonstrated in this pathway document that you can see, Nikki did the Cert 4 Prep Health and Nursing, which is in that second column. Once she moved from the Certificate 4, which was a 6-month qualification, Nikki then moved into the Diploma of Nursing. Now, that's an 18-month qualification, and that enabled her to become an enrolled nurse. But ultimately, she wanted to be a registered nurse, which is through a university pathway. So Nikki didn't do HR. She chose to do a TAFE pathway. And what that meant for her, once she'd attained her enrolled nursing qualification, she was working in the industry. When she then transitioned, she went to Notre Dame to do registered nursing. It took a year off her degree. So there's considerable savings when we talk about the difference in pricing. But it also meant that she was able to work in industry. So she was earning while she was still learning. And obviously she already had baseline skills that was recognised by the university to, one, shorten her degree, reduce her HEC stack, but also made the learning as a registered nurse much more relevant for her.
Fantastic. So do you know, how does a vet course differ from university? Apart from the fees, of course.
Significant savings in the fees, and most people would be aware that TAFE has really been promoted heavily by state government recently in terms of there being a lot of courses for free for eligible people. Course fees have been slashed, and the Diploma of Nursing is a perfect example. At the moment, it costs around $1,500 for the diploma. At one point, that TAFE fee was in excess of $10,000. So that's how much state government is currently supporting TAFE fees. So other than it being considerably cheaper to do a vet pathway, students having that ability to be working with employers is key as well. We often find employers give students employment as a result of work placement. And it's really about those really strong industry links that sets it apart. University is more theory-based, whereas TAFE and vet is more practically based.
And so why do you think a young person should choose vet when they are capable of ATAR?
Well, look, students can do both. Whilst they're still in school, we have a number of students who come through our vet DSS Pathways program who are doing both. It's and I know Nikki will talk to this a little later, but it's seen as a subject, and a subject can take you into the university pathway anyway. So a certificate 4 or higher vet qualification can gain a young person entrance into university. So it can be also about students having a go at something. You know, quite often we find students will try a qualification and realise it's not for them, and we find that equally valuable. And sometimes it's better to do that through a vet pathway than a long-term commitment in a university degree.
Thanks, Tracy. I too, like you, I have a son who went down the vet pathway. He actually studied ATAR when at school and was very interested in political and legal studies, and now and he did a diploma in political and legal studies at TAFE. So that just shows a little bit of the depth and breadth of the courses and the qualifications that you actually offer at TAFE. Thanks, Tracy, for that. That's very useful information. And we're just going to go into a poll question now. And I think Richard's going to assist me with this.
I am.
Great, thank you. So the poll question for you is, and this is just a little one for gaining some more interest about what happens with when you've completed a vet qualification. On average, who earns more 6 months after graduation, a university student or a vet student?
We'll give that 30 seconds. Everybody's taking the obvious answer, I think. No. Okay, 19 out of 26 have voted. I'm going to end voting there, or polling, sharing the results now. 73% went for the vet student, 4% for the university student.
Wow.
All right, let's have a look at the slide.
This slide was produced by the Skills Commission, which is a federal government initiative also. And I just thought it was interesting to show for you so that you got some information about what a young person can earn when they've actually finished university. So well done, those of you that came up with the answer. A little bit of food for thought.
Okay, just before we go to Megan and Nikki, thank you, Linda and Tracy. There are a couple of questions there. And that first one, I think will go to you, Linda. Is there a training hub that looks after the region west of the Kwinana Freeway?
Unfortunately, no, they're not. I did mention that we're a pilot program. So what we're hoping is that if we are successful in running our hubs, that the federal government will pull in some more industry training hubs. Having said that, if you're outside of our region and you're a parent and you want to contact either Megan or I, we're more than happy to hear from you and to assist you in any ways that we can.
Thank you, Linda. There is a question as well, and this one's for Tracy. Do the regional TAFEs have the same role as Tracy's? Do they have them in regional TAFEs, the role that you have, Tracy?
Yes, they do. It may not be called the same as my role, but each of the TAFE colleges is funded by the Department of Training and Workforce Development to offer vet and schools programs. If someone wanted, I can provide my contact details and I'm happy to connect people to the right colleague at a regional TAFE.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Megan and Nikki now. Make sure you've got your microphones on. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. I just want to reintroduce Nikki Howe, who is the vet manager at Byford Secondary College. And Nikki, we're very lucky to have her and Tracy. Nikki has a very strong background in vet and with the Department of Education as well. So thanks, Nikki, for your time tonight.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for having me.
That's okay. So the first question is, can you explain to parents that have signed in tonight how vet courses work in school?
Okay, so bear with me while I get through this answer because it will be a long one. There are many ways that vet is delivered to students who are in high school still. I will start with the external pathway option. So this is the option where the students actually they leave school for 1 or 2 days a week and they will attend a training organisation. So I will start with the vet delivered to secondary students option. And this is through TAFE, and Tracy did touch on this. It's a very good option for our school students because it's government funded. So you get to go to TAFE 1 or 2 days a week over 1 or 2 years in year 11 and 12, and it's free. So this is a very good option for students, and applications for this this program are very competitive. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So yeah, that is a very good option, and students do get a taste of TAFE, and they get treated as an adult while they're on the TAFE campus. So yeah, very good option. Then there's the option of going to a private RTO, a private registered training organisation, and they often offer things like the Cert 4s that Tracy was talking about, which are fantastic if you can do them while you're at school, because then you can use that to actually gain entry into certain universities. There is often, with the private registered training organisations, a fee associated with that course, which is payable most of the time by parents or the students. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are applying for vet delivered to secondary students, it's a really good backup to have that behind you. So to investigate a fee for service option if you have that ability to be able to pay for that, just in case you don't get into a TAFE course. And then there's other things like school-based traineeships and apprenticeships, which you can do while you're still at school. These are really good options because students get paid when they're attending their employment. So that always really excites students. They're basically exactly the student will sign a training contract most of the time along with their parents and a private, not necessarily private, a private or TAFE registered training organisation. And they will, and the employer will sign them on as well. So they're basically an employee. They work through the school holidays, but they do get paid for that. And then they get. What was that? Sorry. Oh, I must have caught some back noise. So really good options. And they're the main ones outside of school. So they're the ones that you would leave school for. Or you wouldn't leave school, but you would leave the school grounds to do those courses whilst you're at school. Every school does that differently as well. So that's something that you should probably chat to your vet coordinator about. Every school timetables their students in differently. So they're the external options. And then there's the internal options. So that's where a teacher, a trained teacher, a teacher that's done a Cert 4 training and assessment certificate, they will deliver the certificate on site at school as if it was a subject. So it'd be the same as doing English or maths, but you actually get delivered a subject, a certificate while you're at school.
Right.
It's a really good option. So you don't have to leave school if transport's an issue. Really good option. So you literally would do it the same as you would any other subject 4 times a week. You can actually do a couple of certificates while you're at school. So if you do go to, if you do an external course 1 or 2 days a week, you can still do a certificate while you're at school as well. So that's a lot. I want to say it is a lot of information and it can be really overwhelming. So have a chat to your vet coordinator at your school because every school's pathway program is different and how they package that is different. So have a chat to your vet coordinator or your workplace learning team or your pathway centre. They all look different, but there'll be people there that will be able to help you. And so that's my advice.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you, Nikki. So in terms of if I have a young person at school and they're considering taking up a vet qualification or a vet pathway, when would you recommend that they start looking into a career pathway with vet?
As a career advisor, as early as possible. But as a minimum, year 9, you really want to start researching things in year 9. Purely because halfway through year 10, students will be faced with course counselling, which is where they will basically pick a path, which quite often freaks parents and students out because they have to make a decision on that. Well, they don't have to make a decision, but they do have to have a good idea of where they're heading. I would say year 9, so that when you get into that course counselling, you will know what certificates TAFE deliver. You'll know what fee for service options are out there. You'll know if there's some school-based traineeships or apprenticeship opportunities that you can tap into. And again, chat to your vet coordinator because they're gonna be able to help you with all of that. And also let them know what your plans are. Because so many times you'll see things come through, and if you know a student wants to be an electrician and there's something that comes through, in year 10 there's a try trade or a taster course come through, you know exactly where to put that information and to make it, really filter that through to a parent. So keeping that open communication is really important.
Yeah, I think could you just for parents that are listening, explain just a little bit about the trial trades and the tasters, because they may not be aware that there are opportunities for the young people to give it a go.
Yep. So in year 9 and 10, you can do trial trades. They're usually funded by the Construction Training Fund, and TAFE does often run them, but Skill Hire does, and a few other places do. College of Electrical Training, and there's MPA. They do plumbing trial trades. There's more and more of them coming out, and I won't get into there's a lot more coming in this space, so I won't get into all of that. But yeah, everyone's really keen to get kids interested and giving them a taste earlier on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, they usually advertised where your school advertises things, connect pages, emails, sometimes Facebook pages. So keep your eye out for things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So if I have a year 11 student who starts on the ATAR pathway and gets a few months down the track and thinks, oh, this is a little bit harder than I thought, can they then switch into a vet pathway?
Yes, they can. And again, that's something that you would have to work with your vet coordinator on, because there's all sorts of things that would need to be addressed. Like, for example, the Vet Delivered to Secondary Students program that TAFE run, applications for that open in July in the year previous. So if you're in March, April the following year, the chances of you being able to gain a place in a course like that is very, very, very slim. They are very competitive courses. But there could be a fee for service option out there. There's somebody could be advertising a school-based traineeship, or you could be able to slip into a class at school.
Great.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And last question from me for this segment: does undertaking a vet course allow a student to graduate?
Yes, it contributes. It definitely contributes. So you can get a maximum of 8 unit equivalences when you're for your WACSSO, basically. So and you need 20 overall. So 8 out of 20 is it's a pretty strong pathway to take.
Right.
Yeah, so it definitely can contribute to your WACSSO.
Okay, thank you. Can you just I know we've got some acronyms that are going out, but can you just tell everyone what WACSSO is?
Do regional taste.
Oops. Sorry, we lost a little bit of.
Lost Tracy there. Here she's back. We've got a few questions here. Can we go to those questions?
Sure.
Okay. Question coming up. Does TAFE have a HEX payment system? I think that one's probably for Tracy.
It sure is. Thanks, Richard. Yes, TAFE does. It's referred to as vet fee help in our sector. It is very similar to how the HEX payment system works, and it, however, does only apply to the higher level qualifications. So it's not my area of specialty, but I'm pretty sure it's diploma level and above that a vet fee help loan is available for students.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. I think this one might be.
Sorry, Richard, if I could just also add, there are always payment plans available for students who study the lower level qualifications. So that's available at all times as well.
Thanks, Tracy. I think this one might be for Nikki. I'll just bring that up. Does it have to be a teacher delivering the internal course? What about an EA with Certificate 4 with years of experience in something like childcare?
Sorry, just putting my audio back on.
That's okay.
That's a good one. It generally is a teacher that does deliver it, but that's something you can take up with your vet coordinator or your school principal. It's definitely doable for sure if they've got their Cert 4, but it just depends on how the school run their program. So, but I would definitely ask the question.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could jump in just quickly again, it's Tracy. They could come and apply for a job at TAFE because we're always looking for lecturers, and they don't need a teaching degree. They can have their Cert 4 training and assessment, and we'd be glad to hear from them.
Okay, next question. I think anybody can take this one. Could a student unable but capable, I think that is, to do OLNA or NAPLAN do Certificate 2 of General Education while at school?
I can probably take that one.
Okay.
So you don't need your OLNA to do a general education for adult certificate, but most of the time, I know from my school point of view, you would usually leave school and go to TAFE to do a general education certificate. Would you agree with that, Tracy? I think we've lost Tracy. Have we lost her? Or...
Quite possibly.
Can I add something there?
Yes, please.
That's okay. We'll move on to the next question.
Oh, okay.
Yep. This one's definitely for you, Nikki, because it's got your name in it.
It does.
Nikki.
And they spelt it right. Well done.
Nikki, when can the Year 10 students see you about their desired courses?
Oh, they can come in whenever they like. I'm assuming this might be one of my Byford parents. Hello to all my Byford parents. But they can come into the Pathway Centre whenever they like. We love having Year 10s come in. I don't think we'd be thrilled if we saw more kids come in and ask questions. So they can come in whenever they like. But make sure it's lunchtime. Lunchtime or before and after school.
Excellent. What criteria is assessed when students are applying for a VET DSS place? That might be you, Tracy.
Sure is. So there's many criteria that are assessed when students apply for our VET DSS courses, and I'm predominantly speaking for North and South Metro TAFE. We do ask for school reports, and it's generally the semester one report. Generally, we are looking at maths and English grades, but it's very much dependent on what program the student is applying for. So if we have a young person who's really interested in our building construction, carpentry and joinery, and that young person's school report has great comments from their teacher in, say, woodworking, then that will go a long way. The other criteria, we do look at it very holistically. We look at attendance at school. We look at whether they have a part-time job, whether they do volunteer work. We also look at whether they have a commitment to sport. So there's a number of things that we look at in reviewing the applications. We also look at supporting documentation, which could be references from employers. We will also look at a student statement. So we ask the student to put forward, why they want to do a particular course. And a lot of that information will also be reviewed as part of a student's application, because as Nikki mentioned, they can be highly, highly competitive in some of our areas.
Excellent. Thank you, Tracy. Now, we do have around about 15 minutes left.
I was just going to step in there with and reiterate with Tracy that that first, if the biggest piece of information I could get out to parents of Year 10s is making sure at least that first semester, well, all reports are really good, but that first semester report in Year 10 is so important when putting your application in for TAFE. You see the look of fear on students' faces when they give it to you, and and they do ask if it's competitive, and you have to say, well, yes, it is. So, yeah, so just be mindful of that. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Nikki. Nikki, just got a question there, and that one is just for you. Can parents come in with the students to meet with you? Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Yep, definitely can come in and with students. That's fine. There's actually when you call the main school number, and this is with most schools actually, you'd be able to go through to the Pathways Centre. So good way to get in contact with schools and vet coordinators.
Excellent. Thank you, Nikki. Okay, so we will go back to Megan and Nikki. I think you had some other questions to go through because we do have some time left. So if you would like to go through them. Back to Megan.
The questions that we had, actually, Nikki, you have been so efficient that you've actually answered the questions that we've had. I know that Linda has some for Tracy, but Nikki, is there anything else that you think that is really important for us to talk to parents about? Because, you know, the webinar and future webinars are for us as hubs to help parents to see vet as a first choice option, rather than my generation, it was if you weren't good enough for ATAR, then you were considered to go down a vet pathway. And that's now no longer the case as far as industry is concerned. I know that vet is well regarded. So is there anything that you can add about that?
Probably, the Year 10 reports, making sure you research courses really early on in the piece, having a really good relationship with your vet coordinator, so and also your workplace learning team. There's usually not just a vet coordinator in the Pathway Centre. There'll be a workplace learning team. Just asking questions. And being prepared and going into that Year 10 course counselling really prepared and knowing which way you want to go, or even just going in there and knowing what questions you want to ask as well.
And then there is just one question. So are there any additional fees when doing a vet course? Like you've talked about the vet DSS and fee for service, but are there any additional fees for students uptaking a vet pathway?
Yes, there can be, but every school has structures their pathways program differently. So, having a chat to your school, and it will vary, but it will especially vary if you were going to go for something like a fee for service course with a private RTO. But I would contact your school and find out, because it will vary for sure.
Yeah, so I guess the big message out of a lot of the things that you and I have talked about is for parents to feel comfortable that vet coordinators are there. They're happy to have conversations with parents and to help their young people identify pathways in vet.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they are a massive part of that pie. Pop your hand up and ask questions, because I mean, we've all brought up our kids tonight, I think, and I've been doing this job for 10 years, and my daughter has just left school, and she went down a vet pathway, but even in the Year 10 course counselling and just making decisions, and I knew all the options, and we were still really overwhelmed with the choices. So and I do it for a living. So it is overwhelming, and you will have lots of questions, just feel comfortable putting your hand up and asking. And there's so many places out there now that you can. I mean, the jobs and skills centres are fantastic. There's so much information online.
Agree. All right, thanks, Nikki. We'll hand it back over to Linda and Tracy.
Thank you.
Tracy, I think that we probably had your last question that I had for you answered. You answered it, which was how does a young person apply to get into a vet course, and any hints and tips for application. I think you did a very good answer there, so we probably don't need to go back on that one. So Tracy, is there any other important information that you can pass on to parents when looking
Sorry,
at
Linda, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I am on. Have I lost sound?
No, I can hear you, Linda. Tracy, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Richard. I couldn't hear Linda.
Okay, Linda's asking if you wouldn't mind going through the online applications, how that works.
Sure, thank you, Richard, and thanks, Linda. So, as I said before, responding to the question in terms of the criteria that we assess a vet DSS applicant, this ties in with that. All of our applications are done online. Students can normally do that with the support of their school vet coordinator or equivalent, someone like Nikki, because all our applications do need to be endorsed by the school. So we need to know that the school supports the student leaving 1 or 2 days a week, whilst they still need to maintain their other subject selections as well. For North and South Metro, we open our online applications on the 1st of July every year, and those applications close on the 31st of August. We generally take between 4 and 6 weeks to review the applications, and just to give people a sense of the volume, we had almost 4,000 applications just for South Metro for programs that we delivered this year. So there's a lot of applications, there's just a lot of supporting documentation to review. And we normally get offers back out to successful students via the school early in October.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Okay, Linda, can you ask the next question?
Tracy, I don't know if she can.
Still
you hear
can't
me?
hear Linda.
Okay, that's okay. I'll take over. Tracy, what can a young person do after completion?
All right, I love to say, and Nikki would back me on this, I know, the sky's the limit. Really, people, young people who have started on a vet pathway can take that training and that learning anywhere they like. It can be into further study right up to advanced diploma level. At Cert 4, they can gain entry into university. They can go straight into employment as well. So there's a lot of opportunities, and the employability skills that they'll gain from a vet qualification really allows them to take their training and their career in whichever direction that they choose.
Thank you, Tracy. Just some further links there. I think, Megan, you might be able to go through these.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? Because they were my slide, Richard. So can everybody hear me or not?
I can hear you.
I can.
Okay.
All right.
The first one is the School Curriculum Standards Authority, which govern over what the Department of Education and ASWA schools and CEWA schools can do. And there's a very good section there all about that. That goes into what units you can do to make up your waste, which Nikki spoke about a little bit. So there's further information there. There's some career development information from the Department of Education. This is a brand new site. That site was only launched last week, and it's got great information on it about what to discuss and how to discuss with your child as they're getting ready to choose those subjects in year 10 and thinking about what career they may like to look at. Jobs and skills is part of Tracy's. I don't know if Tracy wants to add anything there. She can hear me in a minute. Perhaps Richard, we can ask her. But jobs and skills come out through the Department of Training and Workforce Development. And the My Future website, which also looks at career planning, is a terrific site. And there's a little tab on there that for parents specifically, again, which can help you at that time when you're wondering who can assist. And of course, as I did say earlier, Megan and I are there Our information's on the slide. If you're stuck, we're really, really happy to help you. We may not be able to help you individually, but we can point you in the right direction as to where to get some other help and advice from. So, Richard, can you ask Tracy to talk a little bit about jobs and skills?
I can do that. Tracy, you probably can't hear Linda. She's asked you if you wouldn't mind speaking about jobs and skills from this slide.
Oh, definitely. So I've worked very closely. I actually worked in a Jobs and Skills Centre when they were first formed. And sorry if I'm repeating anything that Linda may have mentioned. For some reason, Linda's dropped off my audio. Jobs and Skills Centres was a state government initiative to provide free career and training advice for the general public, all walks of life. That can be from people still at school to school leavers to career changers to recently people who have been made redundant. And they are available both north and south of the river and also regionally, I would add. The Jobs and Skills website is a fabulous resource. For South Metro TAFE, we have 4 centres. One is based at Rockingham, another at Mandurah. We also have one in our Armidale campus and also Thornley. And I believe that there are 4 in the North Metropolitan region as well. You can either phone and book a career planning session, or you can jump online and send the team an email. They will give you one-on-one career guidance for yourself or your young person. And there is also lots of resources, which Linda probably covered. My Future is a very, very good resource. But for a young person who may not know what direction to take, they're a fabulous resource that you can access free of charge and might give your young person some clues or some tips or some tricks or some direction in terms of what pathway they might want to take. And as I said, that's a free service available to the general public.
Thank you, Tracy. I think that is the end of the set questions tonight, but we do have some that are sitting moderated. So I've just brought one up now. I think this one might go to you, Tracy. Can you explain that you can only choose from the VET DSS offerings while enrolled at school, even though a full-time TAFE course is 2 or 3 days a week in attendance? They cannot combine this with school. This might also be for Nikki.
It's a bit of both, I think. And I'll draw on Nikki's expertise in the school sector for this. Even though a full-time TAFE course is 2 or 3 days a week, a full-time TAFE course would generally be 3 days a week, but that's 3 days in attendance. That's not the full study. So there would be additional learning. There would be, for want of a better word, there would be homework associated with all of that learning and units of competency. For example, if it was a pre-apprenticeship program or something like childcare, community services, there was a work placement component, which is done on top of the 2 or 3 days a week that they might be considered full-time. And that could be in blocks. It could be 2 weeks of a work placement, or in childcare, it could be an additional day a week, which would really prevent the combination of a full-time TAFE course as well as a school curriculum. And I think as well, it would place a lot of pressure on a student to be able to successfully focus their attention on both a school curriculum and a TAFE curriculum.
Nikki, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with what Tracy said. There's a lot. Yeah, there is quite a few reasons why the VET delivered to secondary student courses are the only ones that you can choose. Quite often, they're Cert 2s and 3s that are delivered over 2 years instead of 6 months. So exactly what Tracy was saying. So trying to do year 11 and 12 and then the certificate on top of that already is already a big ask. So yeah, so to do a Cert 2 or a Cert 3 in 6 months whilst you're at school would be really, really difficult. Also timetabling. Students are, they're timetabled into, every school timetables differently. You may have a 3 and 2 timetable where kids will attend school 3 days a week, and then they will be released for 2 days outside of school. So they'll either do a vet course 2 days a week, or they'll do a vet course 1 day a week, and then they'll do workplace learning on that other day. Or there's a 4 and 1 timetable where the students are timetabled in at school for 4 days, and then they're out for 1 day, and that could be a TAFE/vet course in that 1 day, or it's workplace learning, or students. And my daughter was timetabled in 5 days a week, so she did a pre-apprenticeship while she was at school over the 2 years, but she was actually timetabled in to be at school for the 5 days, and then she had to catch up on the day that she was at TAFE. So it was on her to catch up on the work that she missed out on in the school class. So yeah, it does. Quite a lot of it does come down to timetabling, and then just not overloading students as well.
Thank you, Nikki. A couple of other questions. We do have only a fraction of time left, so we'll keep these short, but this one might be for Tracy. Can a student study through VET and a private provider? Maybe that means VET through a private provider.
Either. The question is yes. VET DSS programs only make funding available for a student to undertake one qualification throughout year 11 and 12. And that's really just about being equitable, because they are highly competitive and wanting to provide as many places for students as possible. But I do believe from a school's point of view, they could do VET and do another qualification with a private provider, or they can do VET with a private provider.
Thank you, Tracy. Are there fact sheets anywhere on VET DSS?
I would recommend people go to our website. So either South Metropolitan TAFE website, and you would look for the secondary student section, and North Metro have the equivalent as well. This is just an example of our brochure of our full program that we offered for this year. There'll be another one available for next year's programs in early May.
Thank you.
That answers that question.
Sort of along the same line.
I was going to say, I think also the Jobs and Skills Centre have a really good secondary school page as well on their website. So that would be another really good one to have a look at.
Okay, question here. How do parents know what courses are available to choose from? You've probably answered some of that already.
I would also refer to the school again and speak to the VET coordinator or the VET team at your child's school, because there are many providers, not just TAFE, and the school would probably have access to the information which is suitable for their students.
Thank you, Tracy. And there is a final question there, which is a nice segue to the end. Richard, will another session like this run again soon? We won't be running this session again soon. We will be doing another couple of webinars this year on different topics. It says, I didn't get an opportunity to advertise this to my parents, but we have recorded this and we will deliver a link to you by email, as well as the slides from this afterwards. Okay. Okay, we have reached 8:30. Experts, you've done a great job.
Thanks, Richard.
Excellent information. Thank you very much. A few technical difficulties, which we got through very well. Well done. But your information was excellent. And thank you for people who attended, because your questions were excellent as well. There is a short feedback form once you exit this, and it would be great if you took a few minutes to fill that out and help us out. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, experts. Tracy, Linda, Nikki, Megan. Thank you tonight. Everybody, stay safe, stay healthy. Have a good night.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.